I'm seeing some pretty startling statistics, and I've been in this field a while, and you've been in this field a while, but some of the statistics I'm seeing on suicide and other deaths of despair are pretty startling, even when I thought that I was hard to shock. And one of the ones that caught my attention, I was at a conference last week that really caught my attention. You take students, people in school right now, kiddos, students, teenagers, adolescents, middle schoolers, so on. 40% of students right now, we're not just talking about have some distress or some sadness. 40% of students nationwide right now have chronic sadness or hopelessness, persistent. And that just blows my mind that, so we're doing a lot we can do on patching people up, getting them back out there, but I really am struggling with what are we doing as a society if 40% of young people who are supposed to be the most optimistic on the planet, 40% of them are experiencing persistent helplessness, hopelessness, sadness. How do we pull ourselves out of that? I'm sort of going a little philosophical here, but what do we do? Because we can patch people up and patch people up, but if we're really just stacking up a society that is 40% sad and hopeless, and by the way, some of those statistics are even worse when you start breaking down people groups. The LGBTQ plus population is way higher than that. A lot of the different ethnic and minority populations, as the terminology may go, they're way higher. What do we do when there's that much sort of stacking up from just causing the problem?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, despair has become a characteristic of this age group, and so that's just tragic. I mean, that's something I didn't expect to see escalate quite like it has even into the lower grades. And so this feeling of worthlessness, of hopelessness, has to be tackled by all of us. The ability to help people understand that they are a person of value, regardless of what the world may be telling them. It's so easy to blame everything on social media. I mean, that seems so easy. I think what we have to do, people like you and I, Adam, have to figure out how to harness that power of social media and use it to help battle some of this disparity. But the fact that there's so much there sometimes doesn't bring the really chronic cases to the top. They're able to slip in. We get bigger and bigger and bigger in all these systems, and sometimes we forget about the individual needs. And those kids and adults slip into the cracks. It really worries me if we don't continue to talk to each other and have ways that we can share information and share with each other what we're worried about. Even as providers, we're going to be at a loss on how to tackle this. It's going to take a unified effort.
Yeah, you've talked about the importance of creating cohesive systems so that children don't slip through the cracks. And so it goes beyond just even the behavioral health care system, don't you think? It goes into the schools, it goes into prevention, and it goes into intervention, and then arming kids with tools. So what's the solution here? Partnerships, I think, are part of that solution. But what do you feel like expanding on that solution would be?
I think something like what we're doing. We have to start a dialogue where everyone can understand fully what the problems are. We can get rid of some of those self-perceived importances that we all think that we have, let go of that perception, understand that we have services. We're not just businesses or that kind of thing, that we're actual services. Our primary goal, no matter if it's Family and Children's Services or Parkside or any of the other wonderful providers we have in the area, our goal is not self-promotion. Our goal is to take care of the people we're entrusted with. And we're entrusted with this area right now.
Yes.
And so when someone is entrusted to you, you care about what's going on with them, don't you? I mean, you have a child that's born to you and it's entrusted to you, and you spend your life making sure it's okay. I'm not sure that all of our agencies understand that, but we're going to get there. And it starts with these kind of conversations and some of the things that we're working on together as groups. I've only been here a short time. Adam and I are kind of
When did you get here? I've been here 9 months.
Yeah, both of you are from out of state, right?
Yeah, I've been here a little over 2 years. Oddly enough, when I got here, I was told by people who aren't around much anymore that none of us worked together in Tulsa.
Oh.
That just scared me to death because
Wow.
that can't work. You know, that's not going to be successful. And I have never moved into a community where I was so readily accepted, especially in the mental health environment.
The same. So like that's the thing, people joke around here, they call it SMALSA because everybody knows everything. And I found that to be true. Like
Yes.
people are very connected, but there's a lot of good that comes from that. And I have felt welcomed, of course, by you, but by so many others, because I think this is a community that is very invested in its own outcomes. Now, we're not, as a community, as a society, Oklahoma and Tulsa, we're not immune from a lot of these statistics, but I have, since I've been here, really experienced it as a community where I don't feel that Family and Children's or Parkside is out on an island. It feels like we're at some center table working with the foundations, working with the agencies, working with the charities, working with families, working with schools, working with law enforcement and first responders. It really does feel like everybody's in this together. Has that been your experience since you got here?
It's absolutely been the experience I've had. I met a little over 250 people in environments just like you and I sitting down. I think we went and had coffee or something, sat down, got to know each other. And in that first year, there were over 250 people across this area that I was able to sit down and just kind of lay out questions to them about how can we approach this better. And I found almost to a person, everybody was ready to do something and create almost a wow factor here, that we knew we could do this in Tulsa.
And when we talk about that, the number of people, whether be they young people or older, I mean, like, suicide risk is going up, all these different things. I think that I've talked before about social determinants of health, like those things like if you don't have a job, your depression is going to be hard to treat. If you don't have a meaningful connection of people that love you and care about where you are that night, if you don't feel supported and tied in, if your health isn't strong, those are all things that contribute to those deaths of despair because they're sort of like pieces of a Jenga tower. All of us can balance if we're like, okay, my health isn't great, but I've got a supporting family. Or I don't have a job, but my family loves me and I've got my health. But the more of those things we start pulling out from under, the more individuals and then collectives start to teeter. And I feel like this is an environment and an area that seems focused on, but I don't know if everybody is fully aware all the different things we need to be doing, because the prevention of that suicide might be 10 years in coming, not 10 months in coming or 10 days in coming.
That's exactly right. It starts very early. Sometimes the slightest thing can be the seed. And so that's something we really have to stamp out. We really got to help people understand their value and their worth. And I think we do that as a community. I moved here and was told about the terrible homelessness in the area. And so I don't know if any of you have lived in large cities, but I just came from the Houston market 2 years ago. This is nothing. And here's the really great thing. Tulsa's doing something about it. It's a conversation that's continually happening. Be it negative or positive, it's still out there. We're talking about it. And it's very much like what we're trying to work with behavioral health and mental health. Adam, if there's not a conversation, we can't get better.
And I've seen some people, even in this area, seem to make the faulty connection. Let's talk homelessness, that homelessness is a mental health issue. And I've seen way too much of a characterization of individuals who are without a home as in need of mental health services. Now, Family and Children's, others, they're all trying to work together because we do know that there is a lot of what you would say comorbidity. Someone without a home may have had a cascade of things that has led them to a mental illness. But I also think we need to be careful as a city and as a county and as a country that we don't equate the things that people struggle with the presence of mental illness.
Yeah, that's true. I've been in markets before where if someone didn't talk like us, smell like us, look like us, sound like us, they must be mentally ill. And that's just not the case. And so it can become one more of those stigmas where people can't reach out and get the right services.
Or as a society, we can play such a game of Jenga, there goes your insurance, there goes your housing, there goes and at some point, aha, you have a mental illness. Well, of course, because look how many things as a society we have failed collectively on, and then we get to that point and people are suffering and they're in a mental state, but that mental state didn't come without context and background that sort of led up to that.
Yeah, exactly. And the state of mental health usually mirrors the state of other health issues throughout. And so we're not special. We're just part of the whole process. And I think as we have, again, as we're starting to have these conversations and we include people from the physical health side, I know you guys are doing some great stuff with that. I'm jealous. You guys are really way out ahead of that. As we start having those kind of conversations, we'll find that we have good common ground. I mean, the whole idea of integration of medicine is going to be an incredible, I think that's the next big wave, and I think that's going to be incredible for our whole country if we can do that. I spoke at a conference last fall and about mental health, and it was pediatricians and nurses and students, and several came up afterwards and said, that's every patient I see. Mm-hmm. You know, this one pediatrician in particular said, I think I could talk to you about the mental health issues of almost every patient that comes to me. And these are, you know, from good families, from families that are struggling. It goes all the way across. I think if we start talking about that, though, and we understand that, hey, we can be your partner.